Welcome to another video. This is my July reading wrap-up. So everything that I read in the month of July, which was 7 books. So I'll just be going through those briefly, and then at the end I'll show you what I'm currently reading and a few books on my August TBR. Alright, let's go. So first up I have The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt. This is a little bit of a chunkier book. It took me probably over a week to finish it, but it was an absolute joy. Absolutely love this one. Beautiful prose. It twists around what is real and what is inside the protagonist's head. A little bit of an unreliable narrator due to some PTSD. A traumatic event happens when he's younger. He suffers through PTSD throughout the book. It also happened to another character whose name is Pippa, and it follows a little bit of their relationship, but it's mostly about the first half is about his childhood, and then in the second half he is back in New York. There is a character whose name is Hobie, who reminds me very much of Hagrid in Hogwarts. He's a little bit bumbling, very wise, and works in this furniture shop and kind of takes on Theo. He becomes his mentor and his caretaker, and Theo ends up becoming an addict due to his PTSD. He falls in love or becomes engaged to a woman who he doesn't really love. He becomes a sort of con man, a crook, if you will. The painting, the goldfinch, throughout the book is a source of tension, and it really elevates the plot towards the end. The painting is a very valued and desired item, and he keeps it hidden throughout his childhood and into his adult years, and it's just this thing that causes him like massive guilt. And I love the ending though, and this book is just so well written, and Donna Tartt takes about like a decade, 10 years to write her books, and you can definitely see that in the story. There's just not 1 ounce of it, not 1 bit of it that has been glossed over or overlooked. She thinks about everything, and the characters are super well developed. You really feel like you're living in this world while you're reading this book, and I absolutely recommend it to someone who likes a grittier novel and something that is a little longer, but well worth the length of the book. Next up I have Good Morning Midnight. It is about a woman who is grieving a loss. She has moved from London to Paris and contemplates what it means to be happy and live in solitude. The book talks about what a room is, what a place represents. She meets different people, mainly men, who try to convince her that she is capable of love and of coexisting and of being in a relationship, though she isn't too sure about that. She basically trips along through Paris, a lot of times drinking or going into these different shops and cafes, and it just touches on different points of her life. Sometimes it's just daily life. It creates a sort of montage of who she is. There's really wonderful thoughts, some dry humor. This could definitely be a reread for me. Next up is a Paris novel. This follows a young woman whose mother has passed away, and she leaves her daughter, the protagonist, just enough money to buy tickets and go to Paris, and so that's what she does, and she experiences this new city and a lot of new foods. She tries oysters for the first time, and she finds this dress in this shop that leads her to these different experiences and circumstances that she believes if she didn't have the dress she wouldn't have found otherwise. And she makes friends with a bookstore owner, and it's just such a fun time. Like, despite some underlying themes of loss, just her time in Paris, it's such a fluffy, easy read. It does talk about like emotions and stuff at some points, but I feel like the majority of it is on like art and food and wine, and if you're looking for like an easy breezy read, this is it, especially if you like descriptions of food and taste and flavors and cooking. This is such a fun time. I highly recommend this one for just like a little palate cleanser. There's a tiny hint of romance in it, but I wouldn't describe it as like a main theme in the book. Next up is The Witches of El Paso. It's a historical look at magic and witches, spells and potions. I really thought it was going to be a good time because I like all of those things, but the characters ended up falling really flat for me. It felt like the author was doing a lot of telling instead of showing, and it just wasn't for me. It also jumped between 2 or 3 different timelines. One of the timelines is 1943, and if done right, I think that can be interesting. But like I said, the storylines just didn't flow well for me, and I wasn't invested in the characters' lives at all. I thought the bit about the rituals and the potions was interesting, but that's about it. So this was probably just like maybe a 3 star, maybe like 2.5 star for me. Next up, I have Corrupt by Penelope Douglas. This is a dark, spicy romance. Heavy on the spice, super heavy on the spice. Like, yeah, just fair warning for that one. So it's a bit of a thriller as well. There are 2 wealthy families, and a girl falls in love with the black sheep of the one family. It's the older brother of the boy Travis, who she's supposed to be with. But instead she falls in love with Michael. She gets involved with Michael's group of boys who end up tormenting her 3 years later as a form of revenge for something that they think that she did 3 years in the past. So it does go between those 2 timelines of 3 years in the past and the present. The plot felt very unrealistic to me. There was a misunderstanding throughout the whole thing that just didn't seem plausible. So I had a hard time getting past that. That was very frustrating. Overall, for what it was trying to be, a spicy dark romance, it accomplished that. And I'm not completely against reading another Penelope Douglas. I definitely would maybe read another one, maybe in a different setting, something not quite so like it just seemed like it was trying really hard to be like that bad boy rock and roll aesthetic, but like in that try hard type of way. So maybe something that's in a different setting. I didn't really feel grounded in this setting, which was an urban setting, mostly in the city, but it just felt like being in a random city or in a random big rich person's house, without anything really to ground me in the story. But it was easy to get through. It's about 500 pages. But despite the length, it felt really easy and quick to get through. So if you're into dark, spicy romance with an urban kind of rock star feel, you might like this. Next up, I have A Natural History of Dragons, a memoir by Lady Trent, though obviously it is not a memoir, it is fiction. She is writing her memoir from the time she was a child to her experience after just being married around when she was 19, and going on this expedition to explore this territory where dragons run rampant. So in the beginning, as a young girl, she discovers her love for dragons through insect-like creatures called sparklings. She preserves them in vinegar, and she does take a break at one point, and tries to be like a proper woman in society, and that's how she finds her husband. But she makes sure that the husband that she finds has a vast library that she can read from, and basically that's one of her stipulations for marrying him, which is pretty funny. She's like, yeah, I'll marry you, but as long as I'm allowed to read the books in your library. Because at that time, women weren't expected to read. They were even slightly prohibited from reading like more scientific type of texts, which is what she is interested in. That is the only real problem I had with this book, is it did come across like more academic-y type of text when I thought it would be more of an adventure. Like I get it, like it's the author's trying to make it sound like a realistic memoir of a scientific naturalist, but I just think it could have been a little bit more adventurous and a little bit more sensory, if that makes sense. There could have been some more sensory details to really ground you into the story. So the writing was incredibly slow. incredibly slow for me. I think that it could have been more approachable, but all around it was interesting. The pacing just made me not like this one so much. And also the main character's vibe, her attitude toward the locals when she goes to this new territory to study dragons was very off-putting. She treated them pretty disrespectfully, and I think maybe that was like part of the time, like she was a like lady, like higher in status, but it was just really off-putting to read. But the dragon parts were interesting and fun. Next up, we have Authority by Jeff Vandermeer. This is the second book in the Southern Reach trilogy. This is a science fiction, and the first one is a bit more of a ecological horror. There's also a movie for the first one. Well, I think it kind of combines all three, but it's mostly based on the first one, and I absolutely love that movie, though it is very like science fiction-y. I loved it. There's some really weird creatures, and the exploration of Area X in the first one, in the first book, and in the movie is just a really good time. This one had a very eerie feel to it. You are seeing the perspective of this character called Control. He is the new director of the government agency outside of Area X. Area X is a place where when they send expeditions into the place, either people don't come back or they come back and they die of this mysterious cancer. And when this biologist comes back from the first book, she has survived supposedly, but she insists to Control, who is charged with interviewing her and interrogating her. She says that she's not who he thinks she is. She's not the biologist. And there's just a lot of mystery and oddities that go on that he's trying to uncover, like what the real story is, if there's some conspiracy going on about Area X and the government decisions surrounding it. So it's a lot of him exploring like the director's notes and her office from she did not make it back from the expedition from the first book. So now he's taken over and trying to figure out like what her message was, what she was trying to say before she got lost in Area X. So the middle got a little slow for me, but it picked up again at the end, and it felt like a nice little interim between the first and third books. I think the third book we're going to go back into Area X, whereas in this one we've been outside of it the whole time in the sort of like station agency, like figuring out like how the government views Area X and like what the ideas and thoughts are surrounding it. So that's everything that I read in July, and this is what I'm currently working on. The Disaster Tourist by Jung Kao-eun. It's translated from Korean, and it is basically about a travel agency specializing in tourism to destinations devastated by disaster. On the verge of losing her job, Yona is given a proposition: take a paid vacation to the desert island of Mui and pose as a tourist to assess the company's least profitable holiday. I think that sounds funny. I think it sounds interesting, and I love anything that's like surrounding or about travel or hotels or resorts and any like weird underlying mysteries. So I'm hoping that's what this will be so far. She's just still in the office. She hasn't left yet for the trip. So it's a nice short read too. And then I'm also about a third of the way through Rouge by Mona Awad. I did read one of her other novels, not Bunny. Bunny is the really popular dark academia novel by her, but I haven't read that one yet. I've read All's Well, and I absolutely loved that one. She has this way of combining the literary and the surreal and just making it weird and odd and eerie, but beautiful at the same time. So this one follows a young woman who has just lost her mother, and she is obsessed with skincare, and it goes into like great detail about her skincare routine and how she watches these little videos about skincare, and she's basically that's her obsession. And then she puts on this pair of shoes in her mother's apartment, and the pair of shoes lead her to this really weird house full of strange people and these red jellyfish. And there's something going on with the red jellyfish and like making people look younger, I think. And there's also a bit of mystery surrounding how her mother died, so I'm wondering if that all like ties together somehow. But so far, really, really enjoying this one. And then a few books on my TBR that I've gotten from the library. A bunch of like not new releases, but within like the last year. Not all of these. This is one that is translated from French, I believe, My Husband. It is a literary thriller. And so, in this suspenseful and darkly funny debut, a sophisticated French woman spends her life obsessing over her perfect husband. But can their marriage survive her passionate love? So, I think this is mainly about like obsession, which I love anything about like obsession or like psychological to dos. Alright, it is a bit later. I realized that my mic died and my last few clips, you couldn't hear me at all. So I'm back. You can see the sun is starting to set behind me. But the last thing I was saying was My Husband looks like it's going to be a good psychological type of thriller. A little funny. It says dark, clinical, and a raspy humor. So I'm looking forward to this, and also the fact that it's a smaller novel excites me because I have a lot of chunkier books on my August TBR. And those are, for one, very excited about this sequel to the duology by Isabel Ibáñez. Her first book in this duology is What the River Knows, and that is set in Egypt, and it follows a young woman, as she tries to find out what happened to her missing parents who were archaeologists, and she goes with her uncle and a young man named Whitford, who is a kind of a hooligan who is a drunk and a flirt, and their dynamic is just so cute and playful. I think it goes into more of his story in this book, deeper into her story as well, because it did end on a cliffhanger in the last book. So it says, a lush, immersive fantasy set in historic Egypt, filled with adventure and rivals to lovers romance like no others. So very excited about this one, and I just hope it's good as the first one. Next we have another sequel. So again, I absolutely loved the first one to the Raven cycle, which was called The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. I'm trying to read all of her books because I want to read her new book that just came out, or is about to come out, called The Listeners. So I'm reading her other books, and this is the second in the Raven cycle called The Dream Thieves. This is the previous one and this one are both YA novels. So while the second one follows Ronan Lynch from the all-boys boarding school, the first one follows Blue, who can see ghosts and talk to ghosts, and she lives with her aunts who are all witches or magical in some way. Absolutely loved that one, and just Maggie Stiefvater's way of telling stories is just completely captivating, and I just breezed through it. I love the paranormal activity. They actually followed these electrical currents called ley lines all around the countryside. So they followed these maps leading to the ley lines to access this magical energy, and it was just so cool. Can't recommend enough. So it says, Ronan Lynch has secrets, some he keeps from others, some he keeps from himself. One secret, Ronan can bring things out of his dreams. So again, excited about this one. Hopefully it's as good as the first. I know that rarely happens, so I'm going to try to lower my expectations a little bit. But one can hope and dream, can't they? This one I picked up from the new books section in the library, so it was kind of impulsive, but I have seen it around, floating around BookTube, and it is called This Book Will Bury Me by Ashley Winstead. This is a true crime. After the unexpected death of her father, college student Jane Sharp longs for distraction from her grief. She becomes obsessed with the morbid world of true crime, befriending armchair detectives who teach her how to hunt killers from afar. In this dark internet underground, Jane finds friendship, purpose, and even glory. Big as this seems, I think it's going to be quick because true crime, thriller, you tend to really just breeze through those pretty quickly. Really looking forward to this one, and it'll be a nice change of things from the couple of fantasies I have on my TBR. I am also currently listening to an audiobook, The Spell Shop by Bethany Durst, and it is exactly what I want from a cozy fantasy. It has an island, a rogue librarian who rescues these library books from a fire, and they're all spell books, like ancient spell books, and magical is like semi illegal. And so she has to hide these spell books, and she takes them with her to this island where she ends up living in the cottage where she grew up. Meets a man who trains mer horses, which is super cute and fun, and she ends up making these jams and sells that along with these spells to the people of the island. And it's so far it's just like super cute and super fun and the perfect cozy fantasy. But yeah, if you have read any of these books, let me know what you think of them, and thank you for joining me on this lovely summer afternoon for a July reading wrap up, and I will see you in the next video.